Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're really going deep with the Rudest Book Ever by Shwetabh Gangwar. Before we get too far into this, make sure to check out the description. We've got some notes and links, like a link to the audiobook, so you can keep learning. Also, if you like what you hear, please like and share this. It really helps us out. All right. So this book is about thinking critically and really breaking free from all those limiting beliefs that so many of us have.
You know, it's funny. The title might sound kind of off-putting to some people, the rudest book ever, but that's what makes it so effective. It's that blunt honesty.
Right. Shwetabh Gangwar doesn't really sugarcoat anything. He's really known for being direct. It's almost like having a friend who's just totally honest with you. Sometimes you need that.
Totally. And he starts out with this idea of the thinking trap. Imagine being taught what to think, but never how to think.
That's wild when you think about it like that.
It really is. It's like we're given a set of instructions, but no one ever taught us how to even question them.
So we're just blindly following the instructions.
Yeah. And that makes us vulnerable to being manipulated.
Okay, so how do we escape this trap? What can we do?
Well, it starts with being aware of it. You have to recognize that you've been conditioned to think in a certain way. Once you realize that, you can start to actively question everything, look for evidence, and ultimately draw your own conclusions.
Basically, don't just accept things at face value.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to dig deeper.
Yeah.
So there's this other idea in the book that really stood out to me. It's this concept that you are a product.
It's such a fascinating way to think about how society works. We're treated like products, expected to fit into these predefined molds.
Get good grades, find a stable job, find the perfect partner. It's like this checklist that everyone's supposed to follow.
Right.
And if you don't follow it, you're somehow failing.
Yeah. Have you ever felt that pressure to meet expectations that weren't even really yours?
All the time.
Let us know in the comments what you think.
And this leads perfectly into another idea from the book, the myth of specialness. Which is funny because I think we all want to feel special in some way.
We do. But that's exactly what the myth is about. It's this idea that being special comes from other people, like getting external validation.
Instead of coming from within.
Exactly. Gangwar argues that you earn true specialness.
It's a process.
It is. It comes from self-realization and from becoming the best version of yourself.
So it's more about internal satisfaction
Yeah.
than seeking external praise.
Yeah. It's like the difference between wanting a trophy and actually wanting the skills and dedication it takes to earn that trophy.
I like that. And it makes me think about the difference between just knowing a lot of stuff and actually being intelligent.
That's a crucial distinction, especially in the world we live in today. Information is everywhere. Just memorizing facts isn't enough. Facts can change.
They can get outdated really quickly.
Exactly. What's more important is being able to think critically, to adapt to new information and solve problems.
So it's more about being able to use information than just storing it in your brain.
That's a good way to put it.
It's like having a toolbox full of tools versus just having a pile of wood.
Yeah. And that brings us to another topic that I think will really resonate with our listeners. Embracing rejection.
Ooh, that's a tough one. No one likes to be rejected.
I know. But it's a part of life.
So how do we deal with it?
Well, Gangwar reframes it.
How so?
He sees it as a normal part of growth.
As in, it's necessary.
It can be.
Interesting.
It's like, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Okay, I see what you mean. Sometimes you have to break things to make something new.
And sometimes those setbacks are just part of the process.
So how do we actually embrace rejection, though?
Gangwar gives some good examples in the book. He talks about that teacher who never noticed you in class, or that project you worked so hard on that didn't get picked.
I've definitely been there.
It's a good reminder that rejection doesn't mean you're not good enough.
So it's not personal. It's more about circumstance.
Yeah, it doesn't define your worth.
That's a good way to think about it. It takes some of the sting out of it. And it reminds me of another concept he talks about, the weirdness of people. What did he mean by that?
He's not saying people are strange or odd. It's more about recognizing that everyone's complex.
We don't always fit into neat little boxes.
We don't.
We all have our own quirks and inconsistencies.
Exactly.
So it's more about embracing that complexity.
I think so. It encourages us to be more observant, to really pay attention to people's behavior.
Instead of jumping to conclusions.
Right.
This is all making me rethink how I interact with people. And it leads me to another point that really resonated with me, this idea of satisfaction versus happiness.
That's a good one. Happiness can be fleeting. It often comes from external things.
But satisfaction is deeper.
It is. It's about living a life that's true to your values.
So it's more about building a life that feels fulfilling
Yeah.
than just chasing those little moments of happiness.
I think so. Are you ready for one of the most powerful analogies in the book?
Oh, yeah. Hit me with it.
You are a nation.
Whoa. I like where this is going.
It's all about personal responsibility. Imagine you're the president of your own nation.
Look.
Your values are your constitution. Self-regulation is your security force. And those harmful impulses, those are like internal terrorists that you need to manage.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
So we're in charge of creating a peaceful and prosperous inner world.
I think so.
But how does that translate to interacting with the external world?
That's a great question. And it brings us to another important concept, dismantling heroes.
Okay, I'm sensing a pattern here. Gangwar really likes to challenge our assumptions.
He does. And in this case, he's cautioning us against putting people on pedestals.
Because it's unrealistic.
It can be. When we idealize people, we don't see them as complex individuals.
We forget they have flaws just like everyone else.
Exactly.
And that can lead to some pretty unhealthy relationships.
Yeah, both with them and with ourselves.
So instead of idolizing people, what should we do?
Gangwar talks about admiration without blind following.
Okay, so there's a difference.
There is. It's about being inspired by someone's achievements without feeling like you have to copy everything they do.
So you could appreciate their strengths, but also acknowledge their weaknesses.
Yeah.
It's about learning from them, but still forging your own path.
Exactly.
This is all so insightful. I feel like I'm seeing the world in a whole new way.
I'm glad to hear that.
But I think we've covered a lot of ground here. Maybe we should give our listeners a chance to catch their breath.
That's a good idea. What's resonated with you the most so far? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to join us for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into the rudest book ever.
It's going to be good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the rudest book ever.
Yeah.
You know?
Before we jump back in, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about relationships being partnerships. It reminded me of this point that Gangwar makes about self-esteem. It's so important to have a strong sense of self-worth, especially in relationships.
Yeah, it's easy to lose yourself in a relationship. You start focusing so much on the other person that you forget about your own needs. That's exactly what he's talking about. Your self-worth shouldn't be tied to your partner. You need to have that solid foundation of self-esteem.
So you're coming to the relationship as a whole person, not looking for someone to complete you.
That's the idea. And it goes back to that you are a nation concept. You need to be a strong leader of your own life before you can have a healthy relationship with someone else.
Like you need to have your own internal government figured out before you can start making treaties with other countries.
Exactly. And speaking of challenging assumptions, remember how we talked about dismantling heroes?
Yeah.
Well, that leads into another point he makes. Honesty is so important, especially when it comes to the people we admire.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does honesty have to do with admiration?
Gangwar says that the more honest someone is about their struggles, the more we can genuinely admire them.
Because it makes them more relatable.
I think so. When someone's open about their flaws and failures, it makes their achievements even more impressive.
It's like you get to see the whole person, not just this perfect version they present to the world.
Right. It helps us remember that everyone has their own journey, with ups and downs.
It's that shared human experience that connects us. It makes me think about all those perfect social media profiles, you know, the ones I'm talking about, where everything looks amazing all the time.
Yeah, those curated highlight reels.
It's so easy to compare yourself to that and feel inadequate.
I know. But Gangwar reminds us that those images are often just a facade. There's always more to the story.
So it's important to focus on honesty, both in ourselves and in the people we admire.
It helps us develop a more realistic view of the world.
And of ourselves.
Exactly.
Like taking off those rose-colored glasses.
Seeing things for what they really are.
And it's not just about being honest with others. Gangwar also talks about being honest with ourselves, especially when it comes to our own beliefs.
Which brings us full circle, back to the thinking trap, and the importance of questioning our assumptions.
It's like he's giving us permission to challenge everything.
He is. He reminds us that many of our beliefs might be based on outdated information or things we were told when we were younger.
So we need to take a step back and ask,
Yeah.
Is this really true? Does this belief still serve me?
Exactly. It's not about rejecting everything, but it's about being willing to examine your beliefs.
And update them if necessary.
Right.
It's like spring cleaning for your mind.
I like that.
Getting rid of all the clutter, making space for new ideas.
And it's an ongoing process.
It's not a one-time thing.
Oh, You have to constantly be questioning and learning.
It's amazing to think that we have the power to shape our own beliefs, but it can be tough to stay motivated, to actually do that inner work.
That's where the idea of reclaiming your mind comes in. It's about realizing that you have the power to choose.
To choose what you believe, how you think, how you react to things.
You got it.
It's not about being cynical or distrusting everything. It's about learning to think for yourself.
Exactly. It's about cultivating healthy skepticism, questioning everything, and being open to changing your mind.
So it's like we're becoming investigators of our own lives,
I like that.
gathering evidence, weighing the facts, drawing our own conclusions.
That's a great way to think about it.
But are there any practical tips for doing that?
Oh, yeah. Gangwar has some great strategies in the book. One of them is to start questioning everything.
Everything.
Everything. Don't just accept things at face value.
So basically, be curious.
Be curious, ask why, ask how, ask what's the evidence.
Like you're a detective looking for clues.
Exactly.
What else does he suggest?
He also talks about diversifying your sources of information.
So don't just rely on one news outlet or website.
Right. Get your information from multiple perspectives. Compare and contrast different viewpoints.
That's so important these days. It's easy to get stuck in an echo chamber online.
It is. And finally, be mindful of your own biases.
We all have them.
We do. And it's important to be aware of how they might be affecting your thinking.
So be honest with yourself and be open to having your assumptions challenged.
It's all part of reclaiming your mind.
This is all so fascinating. I feel like my brain is doing gymnastics.
I know what you mean.
But before we wrap up, I want to go back to that "you are a nation" analogy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It really emphasizes personal responsibility.
It does.
We're the presidents of our own little countries. We set the rules. We make the decisions.
And we're responsible for the well-being of our citizens.
Which are all the different parts of ourselves.
Exactly.
It's a lot of responsibility, but it's also incredibly empowering.
It is. You have the power to create the life you want.
This has been such a mind-blowing conversation, and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired. Before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I have a question for you guys. If you were writing the Constitution for your own personal nation, what would be the most important principles? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to join us for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll continue exploring the wisdom of the Rudest Book Ever. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Rudest Book Ever. Let's take a step back for a second and think about what we've learned and how we can actually use this stuff in our own lives.
Yeah. It's been quite a journey. We've questioned everything from societal norms to our own deepest beliefs.
It's been a workout for the brain, for sure. But now it's time to put it all into practice.
Exactly.
So what are the biggest takeaways for our listeners?
Well, one of the most important things, and it comes up again and again in the book, is self-awareness.
Knowing yourself.
Yeah. Understanding your values, your motivations, even your biases.
So you can make better choices.
Exactly.
It's like having a map of your own mind, so you know where you're starting from.
I like that.
And once you have that self-awareness, you can start to let go of those limiting beliefs.
Right. Remember the myth of specialness?
Yeah.
It's all about shifting your focus from external validation to internal growth.
So you're not relying on other people to tell you you're worthy.
Exactly.
You already know you are.
And that ties into another important takeaway, embracing rejection.
Oh, yeah. That one's always tough.
It is, but it's a necessary part of growth.
You can't let the fear of failure hold you back.
You have to be willing to take risks.
Even if it means getting rejected sometimes.
It's like that saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
So true. And what about the weirdness of people?
Oh, yeah. That's a good reminder to be more open-minded. And to approach others with curiosity.
Instead of judgment.
Exactly.
Everyone's unique.
We all have our own quirks.
And that's what makes life interesting.
It does.
And let's not forget about satisfaction versus happiness.
That's a big one. It's about finding true fulfillment, not just chasing those fleeting moments of pleasure.
Building a life that's meaningful to you.
That's the goal.
And of course,
Yeah.
we can't leave out the "you are a nation" analogy.
Oh, yeah. That's a powerful one.
It's all about taking responsibility for your own life.
You're the leader of your own inner world.
You set the boundaries.
Yeah.
You make the decisions.
And you create the kind of life you want to live.
The Rudest Book Ever is really about self-empowerment.
It is.
It's about realizing that you have more control than you think over your own thoughts, your beliefs, your actions.
It's a call to action.
Take charge of your own life.
This has been such a great conversation.
It really has. I feel like I've learned so much.
You too.
And I hope our listeners have too. Before we go, I want to leave you with one final question. If the Rudest Book Ever was rewritten as the kindest book ever, what message of hope would you add to it? Let us know in the comments. And remember, the journey of self-discovery never really ends. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep becoming the best version of yourself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive